Welcome to Producing Confidence, a Danos family of companies podcast. Whether it's breaking news from the field, insights on innovation, or behind-the-scenes stories, we're excited to keep you connected and informed. Tune in and join us as we continue producing confidence every step of the way.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Producing Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Samantha McGee, and today we are going to dive into the role of case management at Danos. Joining me in the studio, we have Isaac Dantin and Francis Kosak. Isaac is Safety Director at Danos and has been an employee for 22 years. He is a former Field and Staff Employee of the Year winner. Francis Kosak is our case manager. She's been with Danos for 13 years and is also a former Staff Employee of the Year winner. Welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me.
Thanks. It's good to be here. Excited about it.
Yeah. Great. So we'll just dive right into it. So how would you describe the role of case manager to someone outside of Danos?
I think, first of all, just thinking about our employees and knowing that they have a need, especially when our employees are either injured or, they have a non-occupational illness. We want to make sure that they're taken care of. It's our genuine care for their health, their well-being, but not only that, also for their family. Our employees are distant. They're away from the job site. So we want to make sure the face that they see is going to be someone that's welcoming, that really cares, that shows our value and our culture and who we are at Danos. And Frances fits that role. Her position at care manager shows the value, the investment that Danos has in making sure that we are in the face of our employees to show genuine care for them and manage, their situation from the onset all the way to where they go back to work, safely, healed up, or, recovering from an illness or other type of injury.
So basically, this role comes into play after someone has an injury of some sort on the job. Is that right?
Yeah. So our employees, unfortunately, it happens. We try to do everything we can in safety to prevent incidents and accidents, but people are human. People make mistakes. It's going to happen. It's happened to you. It's happened to me. It's happened to all of us. The ones we can't mitigate, we have to manage them. So it's important for us to have a system in place so when those things do happen, we could be frontline. It's also critical that we have relationships. So care management, we like to call it, instead of just case management, is not only Frances's responsibility or my responsibility or safety's, but our account managers, our project managers, our whole company pretty much manage all of these cases. It's not always Frances that'll go and manage a case. It might be that person's account manager that knows them very well and most of the time better than we do. So it is a company-wide initiative. Our purpose, our strategy around living our values is critical. So it takes all of us.
So technically it's the managing and the coordinating of the response to a workplace injury or illness, because we do have some illnesses, to ensure that they get the appropriate care and to follow that through and for a return to work, ensure they are fit for duty on that return to work. As other companies have case management in their organizations, but Danos likes to call it care management because it's so much more personal and it's in that care. We take it a little bit further.
That was going to be my next question. So other companies have case management positions, but we feel ours is a little bit different, being that we're really living the purpose of Danos, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, to give you an example, there are some companies out there that'll use a third-party service to pick up an employee and bring them to a doctor, and that's fine. They are providing the care that's required, but we believe we go above and beyond. That's why we call it care management instead of case management. Case management is the technical term. It's the legitimate title of that position in which Frances is. But a care manager is more. So we want to be the person that our employees see, when we pick them up at the airport, the heliports, wherever they're flying in from, or our shore bases. So it's important for us to show our genuine care.
So the patient, we have an injury or we have an illness, we assess, we triage, we coordinate that care, and then we have human assist with the return to work plan, right? And then follow-ups as well. But with Danos, with our values and our culture, it's more care management than just your case management. So other companies have that case management. They don't see the person they're speaking with. Like Isaac mentioned, they have a third party that picks them up. It's very formal and cold. They don't have that personal investment in them like Danos has with our people. So it's real important to us, and really important that we have our care management, that we take care of them.
I love that. And so how did this role of case or care management come about? We had our safety team, and then how did it turn into what the role it is today?
No, that's a good question. So, when I started in safety with Danos, I came from the field. When I started in safety, we had less than 1,000 people. And we had one administrative assistant. Her name was Michelle Curel, and she was fantastic. She did not only the admin support for safety, but she also took care of a lot of our, risk issues, a lot of our cases where employees were injured and were on, workers' comp. So her role was very busy, and our company was really growing. And so that was about the same time the BP oil spill took place, and our numbers really climbed, and Francis was working the spill at the time. So we never had a person that was full-time that would care for our employees. Our safety team would just go out and take care of them ourselves. Well, as we grew, Francis's position was ended because the spill was done, and we were looking for a place for good people that really fit the values and the culture and the nature of who Danos was. And I was told about Francis, and I've met her a couple of times before. And, it was widely known and quickly known that we need to keep Francis with Danos. She's one of us. And so we created the position. I didn't know what a case manager was before Francis came on. We never had a title of it at Danos. To be honest, I thought I made it up. I really did. I was that naive to even know. But she filled the role, and she wrote the job description, and we worked together side by side. And her ability to take care of our employees, and I want to use this word in a motherly way because Francis has a mother's heart. In a motherly way, she took care of our employees, and it brought something different that we never had before. It wasn't just me showing up or one of our safety guys showing up. She brought the expertise, the knowledge, but the passion, the care, and the solution too. So sometimes employees are scared. They don't know what the next step is. Am I going to have to live with this injury? Or a spouse that's on the other line that's hours away. Francis is on the call. She's managing that whole relationship. So much that Francis gets cookies once in a while from the spouses. But anyway, that's how it started. And from there, we never looked back. And it's been something that I think has, you don't make money when you're doing this. It's a cost to the company, but it's an investment in our people. And I could tell you testimony of how many lives were touched because we did make that decision and because we have a Francis.
Thank you, Isaac.
That's very nice.
Francis.
So, Francis, I know Isaac, you mentioned that you kind of created this role for her. Did you have any experience in case management before that? I know you've got a range of experiences pre-Danos, but what was your experience with that like?
I did that when I was working on for BP and the BPO, so I did it for them.
Oh, got it.
I used to work for the Department of Health and Hospitals. It was real important working there in EMS to advocate for patient care. It's real important. And then, of course, in advocating for EMS, Danos allows me to do that, to advocate for our, their health and their well-being. And so I get to bring that. It was really important to me. And then, of course, use all the resources that we have to care for our employees. Our mission, our goal is in supporting our employees, is to get the appropriate care and to return them home safely in the same, if not better condition that they were before they came to work. That it's an aging workforce in that oil and gas, and it's well-documented trend. And men just don't really manage their health as well, whether high stress or physical demanding jobs. They want to tough it out. So through our care management, we actually have discovered people who have undiagnosed personal health conditions, hypertension or diabetes. And it's an opportunity for health awareness and intervention and coaching them. We have a phenomenal safety culture here at Danos. Isaac has done an amazing job. Our entire organization has done a wonderful job. And now we're able to kind of intervene and give some of that health culture, kind of wrap our arms around them, our benefits that we have here. And we advocate for them to take care of themselves. They're real important to us. And so this also gives me that opportunity, not just to care for that specific injury or illness that is happening at that time, but the overall well-being for our people. That's very important too. That ounce of prevention is worth a pound of care, right? So if we have that opportunity to educate them and to share things with them and help them along the way, and they're really receptive to that.
This really is embodying the vision to care for people that Danos sets. So I'm sure you've got plenty of stories and examples, but is there an example that comes to mind that you can share where you had a big positive impact on an employee and their well-being?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of examples. I mean, of course, we're not going to give specifics or names. I'll be a little general. When an employee has a cardiac event, that is scary. It's emotional. We try to get our families involved really quick. We try to call the spouses. We want them there. Sometimes we can do all that we can and we can be present, but the hand of a loved one, they're with them at the hospital, soothes a person like you wouldn't believe. So there have been plenty of cases, where we did all we could to make things expedited. But yeah, I mean, there's several examples. Those are the ones that scare me. Can we control that? It's hard for us to control a cardiac event or a diabetic episode or, things like that. We can't prevent them. Sometimes those things happen, but we jump to it and we try our very best to really help. But Francis, you have any examples that live in your head?
Well, I have a few, but let's talk about during COVID and what we did for our employees and our team. We kept them educated. Isaac stepped up. We had our COVID care team. We called our employees. We helped direct them to clinics or where they could be tested at, keeping them informed. And when the illnesses became serious, even though it wasn't work-related, we still would find providers for them, and we would help them through this and educate them and their families. It was real important for us during this time. And I think we did an amazing job for those years that we had this going on, years. So there were quite a few that were very serious, could have been detrimental and maybe have been caused death, but we were able to help them. And through our care management, our team made phone calls, 100 phone calls a day to each of our employees that were sick, and making sure that everything was, that if they had any questions or they needed resources and needed information where to get this, we would guide them. And we do that with our care management. And whether it's an injury or illness, we immediately explain to, when they have the injury, we explain to them the process so that they know and trust us for their care, for their well-being. We talk to their families and walk them through this of what we're doing and what, hoping that we get that outcome, right, that they're going to return to work, maybe even better at managing their health and their care by giving those little nuggets and sharing this information. But we want to trust them. We value them. And so we're able to do that.
When Frances speaks to an employee, when she speaks to a spouse, they're getting a refined, heartfelt message. They're getting the direction that they need to make them feel really comfortable. But on the backside, it's very aggressive. Frances is communicating with our doctors. Frances is in the back rooms, with the doctors, talking about what's going on. Frances is making calls even before the employee reaches a clinic or a hospital. And I'm using Frances as the ultimate example, but we just need to really understand that extends. It could be Billy Abear out of Houston because we can't get there. And Billy will show up at 2 a.m, or Joe Mack.
Joe Mack in Houston.
Yeah, or Rick Keene out of Lafayette. And, Matt Kelso going and spend the whole day with an employee who had a non-occupational event. I mean, there's so many examples of the whole team responding, but Frances is always plugged into everyone. If a person in South Texas, trips on caliche and needs to be seen by a clinic, there's an account manager that can pick up that employee, but Frances is already on the phone with the account manager. She's on the phone with the clinic, And so there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. So care is always happening, but there's a bunch of different faces of care, and everybody in the company is on the same page. But that's because, our team proactively tries to make sure that the message is uniform and everybody knows how to handle these cases when they do happen.
And I think just going back to the part that you talked about earlier with, Francis relaying the information to the employee and their family, that's so helpful because all of that is so overwhelming. You go to a doctor, they're speaking at this such a high level. As a patient, you're sitting there, I'm scared to ask questions. I don't want to, you're just overwhelmed. And I can't imagine that the relief that must be to the employees and their families to have that connection and that voice of reason to help them understand what's going on.
Well, yeah, like Sam, so you have a little boy, right? Imagine your little boy's at school today, I'm guessing.
Yes.
So he's at school and he trips and he hurts himself. And who's there to take care of him? Mm-hmm. It's someone there that's taking care of him, but you're the first call. And in your mind, there's things that are running around and you're thinking, oh my goodness, my son's hurt. But that person at the school says, look, it's nothing serious, but want to let you know he's hurt, he's crying. He might need a couple of stitches. We're caring for him. That conversation will calm you. It'll soothe you, but it's still on your mind and your heart until you get there. But the whole time, there's somebody there with your son, giving him that care that's needed. It's no different with care management. We want to do the exact same thing, but with adults. And I'll tell you this, some of these men are just like your little boy. They just little boys in grown-up bodies sometimes. So until the wife gets there, they're a little frantic sometimes.
Let's take an instance where we've had somebody have a cardiac issue and they're scared. We sit in the room. They're like a deer in a headlight. And I said, don't let the doctor say things that you don't understand. And I'll ask questions and get the doctor to break it down for him, okay? And the doctor actually drew out a picture for him to show him so that he could understand exactly what was there. And I was on the phone with the wife. She couldn't get there right away, so it was a 3-hour drive for her, and he needed to go in and get a stent placed. So I made sure that the phone was there so she could talk to him. I knew that she had someone that can talk, that she could contact the entire time, and it gives that comfort while they're driving, because I want to make sure that nothing happens while they're anxious and driving and fearful, that they know that they can take their time, that they're connected through that phone. They're connected with somebody sitting there next to him, and that he's not alone. And these men don't really want, in some cases, be alone. I've held the hand of a young man that came in that had a laceration that needed a couple stitches. He had a little anxiety. His mother had worse anxiety. I said, listen, I'm going to go in the room in the hospital in the ER, and I'm going to kiss him on the forehead for you, and I'm going to hold his hand the entire time. And I did. It made her feel much better. We don't have to go to those extremes.
He's never been the same again.
But that mother knew that I meant what I said. We mean what we say. When we say we're going to do it, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to have follow through with that. And that's real important to Danos. And it's real important to me personally that they allow me to do that. They allow us and our team to do that. And we absolutely have follow through all the way until they come back to work.
I think one of the evidences of good care management is, in our safety focus forums, we ask, does anybody have an example of a time when you were injured or, hurt? And every single time there's somebody that'll stand up, and a couple of people, they'll stand up and say, you know what, there was a time I got injured, and we want them to share, what happened to them. But then they'll talk about the positive side of how they were cared for every time, every single time. And so that's a testament. That's proof in the pudding right there that Danos is investing in not a system, but in people that truly care for our employees to make sure that they're taken care of.
That must make you feel good and validated. Let's talk about some of the rewards of the job. Is that part of what makes this job rewarding, or what does that look like?
When they tell me, I've never met any company that cared about me like that. When my daddy had his heart attack, they didn't even come to see us when we were at the hospital with my dad. But y'all picked me up, you drove me to the doctor, and you stayed. And there's just to hear the things that are so, they just really are. It's just unbelievable how many times I've gotten a card or a letter, or they've called and they've thanked us and our people for being there for them. And they've never had anybody that really, truly, sincerely cared about their well-being to take them to the doctor. Not a stranger, somebody with Danos. Even in cases where we've actually had some of our leadership call them when they've had an incident and see how they're feeling. They get that reach out to them and they go, I didn't know he knew who I was, and it's real important. I can't say that enough, but that it gives me joy to my heart, when I see that in their faces and they say, you didn't have to do all that. And, it's part of my job, but Danos allows me to go that extra mile, which is important. And it's important, like I said, to me, to our team, to our entire team, that we're able to do that. So
Another thing too is it starts at the very top. So with the Danos family meets every Monday. I don't think it's a secret. They pray together, the owners, and they'll ask us about the employee that might be injured or, hurt or had some kind of non-occupational issue so that they can pray for them. And I think that's huge. That is really living, our purpose, to honor God, to treat people rightly. Anyway, so they do that. And that is not uncommon. We'll get a call, and sometimes I'm embarrassed because they want an update, and I have to call Francis for an update to get them, to find out what's going on with the employee. But they'll make a call to that employee, and nobody knows that behind the scenes. I know that because they're asking. Francis might know that because they're asking her, but they'll make that call. But they're not gonna blast that hey, I called so and so. They genuinely care for our employees, and that just trickles all the way down. Look, it means so much when you get a phone call from a Danos when you're going through an event like that, and that's why people celebrate it, like during the safety focuses. They want to talk about it because it's above and beyond anything that they've experienced in their previous occupations.
it's kind of cool when you have a patient, let's say that they had a bone injury, and they're a heavy smoker, that can impact the outcome and their recovery. We will have a stop smoking cessation for them. They'll quit smoking. We've had a lot of positive outcomes in their their care. So we try to help with these outcomes, and getting back. So we don't just have us care management and safety. We also have a great team where we have risk management involved, and we meet weekly on that in these cases where they've been maybe had an injury and they're out of work. But we maintain that even through all of that they're maybe out on an injury. And we regularly call them. It's not just some adjuster. It's us. It's their account manager. It's care management that's calling them and checking on them until they come back to work.
That is really special. And I know there are a lot of moving parts, a ton of work. I mean, and your phone is on 24/7. What are some of the most challenging parts of this job?
When I can't get to them or get to in a remote location, I can't get to them quick enough or get them somewhere as quickly as I'd like for that to be, as we would like that to be, where we can't get someone to them to be with them. We'll kind of coordinate with our clients. We'll coordinate with someone to get that care to them. I think that is the most stressful part. If there's bad weather in the Gulf and we can't get them in, we can't get them home, that is very stressful at times.
Yeah, I think, we have unwritten rules, eye injuries, back injuries, we get them in, but some things we're just not in control of, and our customers may be, and sometimes we find out about the issues after the fact, even though we expect to know. That becomes pretty frustrating for us because we believe we can do it better. Not to say that they can't do it as good, but we would like control. We would like to put our full effort into making sure that they're cared for in the best way possible.
The Danos way. I don't know how to say it. That extra, Isaac says it's flatté. What do you call it?
Flatté, yeah. So Francis likes to flatté, and she has that ability. So flatté is, if you imagine taking your hand and putting it over somebody's hand and soothing them, that's flattéing them, making them feel comfortable and soothing them. So Francis is a big flattéer.
Yeah.
Flatté. Learn something new. Love that. So, Isaac, I know we've talked about how Francis does such a great job for many reasons. What are some skills or qualities that would make someone a great case manager?
So I used to call Francis, what was it? Dynamite and stilettos. That's what I called Francis. So, she's always on it. She's unselfishly on it. She is 24/7 on it. She takes no vacation, even though she's on vacation. She refuses to not answer her phone, even though she's on vacation. And we try to force her, and our whole team will be like, hey, we got it, Francis. just relax. And it's like extremely hard for her. But, she has the quality of care. She does have the experience. Those things are great. You can find anybody with experience. You can find anybody with the technical, aptitude to take care of people. But she just goes above and beyond. And, it's difficult sometimes with Frances because I won't say all the good. I'll say some of the ugly. She wants to manage it so much that she can't. And it's out of her swim lane. And I tell her that all the time. You got to stay in your swim lane. But she wants to see the employee not just fixed. She wants to make sure they're going to work as soon as possible. They're not on comp, that they get back their life. And sometimes that trickles into HR. And she's not in there. So she forces herself like a little bulldog to get in there to get the care that's needed. And I think that's a great quality. It's above and beyond. Nobody else is going to do that. Frances has to give a 10-year notice. That's the agreement that we have. And it can't be until 10 years before I retire. So.
It's funny because you hear the soft side of me when I'm talking about the care and that's true, but there's a very aggressive side of this, very aggressive. Actually, I sometimes have to apologize afterwards, because I'm so passionate about doing what we need to do and knowing what the outcomes can be. I don't want that just that regular. I want it to be exceptional. We want it to be. So we have more of a human connection and a humanistic care. We're able to at Danos to be able to, it's not just the bio and the social and the psychological, because we do consider that as well. We've got psychological safety. We also have that in our care, but it's also the spiritual side, where we also get to praying with our employee if that's what they would like, and that brings peace to them at that time and with their family on that deeper level. But that aggression, that aggressive level that I have about we have about their care and pushing and making sure that we have that excellence, right? We've got the excellence, and I'm just so awesome to be at Danos that they allow that both sides of me, that sometimes seems like it's just real pushy, and able to give that.
It's real pushy, trust me, because the relationship between Frances and the medical facilities and companies is another aspect of what case management really is. Because, we have great relationships with some of our like Gulf Coast is one example. Great relationships with them to where their doctors don't quite understand maybe the OSHA regulations around care management, where we have to go in and help teach them what that looks like. For instance, an employee has a cut on his finger. You can clean that cut up and put a steri strip on it, and it's not an OSHA recordable. But if you put a stitch, it's an OSHA recordable. So a lot of people might not know that, but the doctors don't know that either. So we try to link up with clinics that understand proper care first, but also, OSHA regulations and what record keeping, reporting looks like. So Frances will go into these clinics and pretty much teach them how to do case management as well, and like our expectations. So there's another side of that's on a professional level. And look, they 100% welcome Frances. So when an employee comes in, and Frances might be escorting or someone else, they openly accept that and they want that because they want to provide the best service they can for us. But care for the employees always first. That has never been an issue of negotiation. Our clinics that Frances vets herself, they give the care that's needed, and Frances makes sure that all the technical parts are taken care of as well. And sometimes she has to argue and get on some of the doctors because they just might not know. That's the business side of it. The employee doesn't see that, by the way. That's between her and doctors, and so there's a lot that goes into it.
There's a lot behind the scenes that you would never think about, all of those details that Frances and your team, y'all think about all that.
Yes, we vet our clinics, in advance. So we have all of our vetted, and we make sure that they understand occupational medicine. It's not just somebody will hang a shingle out there and they say, we do occupational medicine, and so there's a difference. They say they think it's just the workers' comp kind of standard. Well, workers' comp and occupational medicine are actually they're different. We want them to understand what they're tasks are and their job and what it is to perform that job up against what their health is and their ability and their agility, right? So, and what their safety sensitive roles are out there. A lot of clinics, like I said, they'll say that they are where they understand workers' comp, but they don't understand that some medications can't be used out there on the Gulf of America and certain clients in our industry. So we make sure that we have our clinics that understand that. If it's in a remote location, there's nothing else, then we make sure that we bring to them the OSHA resources to train them and educate them on what that is, or through ACOM, the American College of Occupational Environmental Medicine, some other resources so that they can educate their teams. We have done that quite often, and we share that with them so that we're going to have good partnerships with our providers out there and to be able to get that good outcome. You have a muscle strain and you go to an urgent care, they're going to give you some medications that aren't for a safety sensitive position, and then they're going to take you out of work. Well, that means our gentleman now cannot go back to work, provide for his family, that he wants in the way he would like to. And so having that specific vetted OCMED, they understand that and they know what the boundaries are for that and making sure and we're caring for our employees. And the other thing is that with our care management team is, like I said, we personally are there. We're there for them. When you have that other party, they come in there, they don't advocate that. They're not advocating for that and that care for them. So it is a lot in the background of that.
How are our customers? I mean, I imagine that would be something that they appreciate. Do you get feedback from them, or they welcome your team to jump into those roles? What does that look like?
First of all, we're held accountable to our employees who get injured, and our employees who have non-occupational events. Every year, sometimes a couple times a year, we have BPR's, business performance reviews, and those things are looked at. So that's something that can count for us or count against us. And I have to say that if I had to grade our company for the past 16 years, it's been excellent. And I think we're leading the industry in those cases. But yeah, our customers are very different from each other too. Some are alike, but some are very different. Customers in Texas are different than customers in the Gulf of America. And so you just have a very, I guess, rainbow of different expectations. Some of them have their own system to where they'll use their own care manager, or they'll use a third-party company. And sometimes it's just a hotline, and they'll expect us to use that. Well, to us, that's just that's like a bolt-on. Yes, you can do that, but we're still going to take care of our employee. So it's non-negotiable. They might still want to use whoever it is in whatever company, but we're still going to go pick up our employee. We're going to provide the care that we need. So we haven't had any pushback on that. And Frances and the relationship that she has with those other companies, especially the majors that have their own system and care managers, she has personal relationships with those. Now that's big because our customers are another big part of our company purpose, right? We want to make sure we're taking care of our customers. And for them to know Frances is a good and a bad thing. If they know her, that means that we have employees that are injured or sick. So it forces them to have a relationship. But on the positive side, they have a relationship where they can talk and communicate. And that's extremely important. That's fairly new. I would say, Frances, maybe in the last 5 years, have our customers really been as involved. And so people look to us as the standard, to be honest. Their other third party or contractors might not have that. So they'll ask me to speak, on behalf of that subject in front of, a forum that has other contractors on what we're doing. So I think that's a compliment of Danos, a compliment of what Frances does and how she leads. I wish she would speak a lot more at those events, but she's nervous about the podcast today. I think she's doing awesome. I think she's doing great. But yeah, so our customers really value how we treat our employees and care for them. But also, Fran, is the feedback. It's the end result after. It's not just what's happening right then and there. It's having that employee return back to work, getting a full duty release, and she follows them until they're 100%.
When it comes down to it, the role of care management, of case management at Danos, it really stems from the company's purpose to honor God, develop great people to solve big challenges for our customers and communities. Tie that in for me. What What does that mean to you in wrapping all this together?
I think first of all, honor God is a big one. It's one of the pillars of the company. For me, it's a personal pillar, and I think it is for a lot of our employees. There's so many biblical stories that you can think about of how, people were in bad situations, they were cared for genuinely, how we should care for each other, how we should love each other. I think this all stems from it. For us, it's not a prescription. It's a natural thing. But it comes also, you can't forget about the other part of the purpose, developing great people. How do you develop a great person? Well, one is you got to care for them. You should want to care for them, and we do. So to develop them isn't just developing them and their skills. It's making sure that they're in every single opportunity successful in their health, in their well-being, in their care. So developing great people that understand that the company cares for them enough to be there when things happen, and things happen. It happens all the time. But then also solving the challenge for our customers, and I think that is critical. Our customers are counting on us to take care of our employees. Not to say that they don't care, but we want to make sure that we don't drop a ball. We want to care for that employee, and so we are proactive. We don't delay. We're very responsive to that. And our customers, I think, appreciate us for doing that. And look, I think it's part of the success that Danos has, and I don't want to downplay that at all. Although care management or case management is reactive because something has to happen. Again, things happen. People do make mistakes. People do have illnesses. And so for us, I'll give the whole company an A+. That doesn't rest on just my shoulders or Francis's shoulders. That's on everybody from the top down. It's from the simple person that might have just walked in, that 6-month employee that's an admin here at the office, that lets us know that they're feeling weak, and we can go and care for them, and they can go back to their families healthy. So it doesn't have to be the employee that's working on a platform that has a major injury. It's all of us, and caring for one another is important.
Anything you want to add, Francis?
Isaac talked about when I came on board, and he heard things, wonderful things, but he did not relinquish the reins very easily. Isaac, he was all about that care management even before he knew what a case management and the care management came about.
Before he invented the role.
That's right, before he invented the role. So now with me handling the day-to-day care management and the risk oversight, what kind of shift has that brought you to your role? And how easily was it for you to...
You asking me a question, Francis?
Yes,
I didn't write you a question to ask. What kind of shift has it made for my role? I'm just going to give the black and white. So Francis and I had a discussion this week, and she'll come bounce stuff off of me. And I'm not going to say I was aggressive with her, but I was real with her. She makes the best decisions. She doesn't need me to approve of her decisions. She likes to bounce them off of me because she wants the approval and she wants the support. And I know she needs that. I realize it. But she really doesn't. She is, for years now, you have for years now, made the best decisions for our employees. And you've challenged a lot of things that needed to be challenged. And I think that's what progresses. For me, in my position, we're a pretty tight, small group. So I can't focus on every aspect. I have people in place that do an excellent job, and Francis is just one of them. So I don't even ever second guess it. I don't ever question it. My biggest thing would be to feel empowered because you have all the skills and the care, you have all the resources, and you're well balanced in your aggressiveness and your flattiveness, if that's a word. Francis was Employee of the Year that you mentioned earlier for a very specific reason. It's because she cares for people. It's genuine. And when people are in their worst condition possible, when they're looking at all the questions of what tomorrow brings and life-changing events, Francis brings a soothing comfort with real answers, not fake answers, not something just to fluff them off. She gives them the answers they need to feel loved, to feel cared, and to see what happens tomorrow. What does it look like? And she'll hold their hand until they get through that and their families get through that. And there's some circumstances that are really bad. Regardless, Frances is there in the middle of it. And so anyway, this is a really big part of our company. I think it really does live every aspect of our purpose. And there's no other Frances. There's no replacement for Frances. So when you retire one day, I'm retiring too. That's all I'm saying.
They'll hire 3. to
Start the
replace
training
me.
now.
Thank you. Danos is a great company, and we've got great people, and it's a great combination.
I agree. We do have great people, 2 great people, Frances, Isaac. Thank y'all so much. This has been really insightful, been really helpful to know the care and the thought and the genuine love of people that goes on with our team. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
It was good. Thank you all. A lot of fun.
That's it for this episode of Producing Confidence. To learn more about the Danos family of companies, be sure to follow us on social media. Remember, stay safe, stay connected, and keep producing confidence.